They thought the coffin had silenced me forever, but I heard every single word she said at my funeral. Every lie, every laugh, every betrayal. And when I returned from the dead, I came back for one thing only: revenge. Stay with me because this story will shock you more than anything you've ever heard. And don't forget to subscribe for more touching stories. I was lying inside the coffin. My hands were stiff, my eyes shut, and everyone thought I was gone forever. They cried, they whispered, and some even laughed quietly, thinking no one could hear them. But I could. I was alive in a way no one understood. My ears worked, my mind worked, and my heart burned. Then I heard her voice, the one I loved and trusted most. She leaned close to my coffin, her words like poison dripping into my soul. "I am glad she is gone," she whispered. "Now everything she had is mine. She was always too stubborn, too proud. And now she will never know what I did to her." I froze inside that dark wooden box. My body could not move, but my soul screamed. She didn't know I heard every single word. She thought death had silenced me, but death had only sharpened my ears. That was the moment I swore. I would not rest in this coffin. I would return. I would rise. And when I did, she would face me. But before I could even think of how to rise from the dead, something happened inside that coffin that changed everything. My name is Margaret, though everyone in town called me Grandma Maggie. I was 72 years old when the story began, but don't let the number fool you. I was strong, lively, and stubborn. People said I had the spirit of a woman half my age. I lived in a small house at the edge of Willowbrook, a quiet town where everyone knew everyone's business. I had 3 children, Thomas, Elizabeth, and Sarah. Thomas was the oldest, a good man with a quiet smile. Elizabeth, my middle child, was clever but sharp-tongued. Sarah, the youngest, was sweet but always worried too much. I also had a granddaughter, Lily, the light of my life. I raised her when her mother left. She was only 14, but she carried wisdom far beyond her years. Life in Willowbrook was not always easy, but I believed in hard work and kindness. My little garden gave me vegetables, my chickens gave me eggs, and my stories gave people laughter. Folks came to my porch just to hear me talk about the old days. But behind the smiles and visits, not everything was peaceful. Some people envied me. Some pretended to be friends, but carried darkness in their hearts. And one of those people was standing at my coffin the day I died. The trouble began months earlier. Strange things started happening in my home. I would leave my cane by the door, and it would vanish. Food disappeared from my kitchen, though I lived alone. At night, I heard footsteps that weren't mine. At first, I thought I was getting old and forgetful. But Lily believed me. She said, "Grandma, someone is coming into your house. Someone who doesn't want you to notice." Her words made me more careful. I began locking every door and window. I prayed before bed, but the footsteps did not stop. One evening, I woke to find a shadow standing at the end of my bed. My heart nearly stopped. The figure was tall, silent, and still. When I gasped, it disappeared. For nights after that, I couldn't sleep. Fear became my companion. Then one morning, I found a note slipped under my door. The words were written in red ink. "Your time is almost over." I showed the note to Thomas, but he told me it was probably a prank. Elizabeth rolled her eyes and said, "Mother, you worry too much." Sarah cried and begged me to move in with her. But I refused. This was my home. I had lived here for over 40 years, and I would not leave because of fear. Still, the warnings grew worse. Dead birds were left on my porch. My garden was destroyed overnight. One afternoon, I saw smoke rising from my barn. By the time I ran to it, the fire had spread too far. The barn burned to the ground, and with it, half of my savings stored in an old metal box. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the ashes. My hands shook not from old age, but from anger. I whispered to myself, "Whoever is doing this wants me gone. But I will not bow to evil." The next day, Lily came running to me with tears. She had overheard a conversation in town. Someone had been speaking about my will, about the land I owned, about who would get it when I was gone. My heart sank. I realized then that this was not just mischief. Someone wanted me dead. Weeks passed. I became ill. My body weakened, my breath grew short, and the doctor shook his head. He said it was pneumonia, but deep down, I felt it was something more. Something, or someone, had pushed me toward this grave. And then came the day of my funeral. The church was full. People sang hymns and cried. But I lay in the coffin, not dead, not alive, somewhere in between. My body did not move, but my spirit clung to the world. And that was when I heard her voice. Elizabeth. My own daughter. I am glad she is gone, she whispered. Finally, the land, the house, the money, everything is mine. She thought she was so wise. But she never saw it coming. The world inside me cracked. My heart burned with betrayal. My own blood had done this to me. She poisoned my food, she spread the sickness, she set the fire. My daughter. I wanted to scream, to rise, to grab her by the throat. But I couldn't. I lay there as if trapped between two worlds. My ears caught every single word. And my soul made a vow. I would not stay dead. I would come back. As the lid closed over me and the darkness grew deeper, I felt a strange power stir within me. My hands twitched. My chest moved. The people around the coffin didn't notice, but I did. Something was changing. And then the coffin began to shake. The coffin shook. At first, it was only a tiny tremble, like the wind had touched it. But then it grew stronger. My chest rose and fell. My fingers curled. My heart, silent for hours, began to beat again, slow and heavy like a drum in the night. Thud, thud, thud. I heard gasps above me. Did you see that? Someone whispered. The coffin moved, but Elizabeth's voice cut through. Cold, sharp, commanding. It's nothing. Just your imagination. Close it. Lower it into the ground. Her words pierced me. She wanted me gone so badly. She would silence even the smallest sign of life. I tried to push up, but my body felt like it was made of stone. I screamed inside, but my lips would not move. And then silence. The church grew still. The sound of feet moving away echoed above me. I was left in darkness again. But I was not the same. I was changing. Something stronger than flesh kept me alive. Something sharper than blood kept me awake. And in that coffin, in that darkness, I promised myself I would not stay down. To understand why Elizabeth hated me, you must know our history. Elizabeth was born clever, yes, but she also carried greed in her veins. As a child, she wanted everything her siblings had. If Thomas had a toy, she cried until she got two. If Sarah got new shoes, Elizabeth tore them just so no one could enjoy them. I loved her, but I also feared for her heart. I tried to raise her right, to teach her kindness. But the world saw a different face of Elizabeth. To neighbors, she was charming. To friends, she was generous. But to me, her mother, she showed her real self. When her father died, Elizabeth was only 18. She blamed me for everything. She said, "You never gave me enough. You kept me small in this little town." She wanted to run away, but I begged her to stay. She stayed, but her anger stayed too. Years later, when my health began to weaken, she asked about my will. I told her, "The land will be shared among my children. Equally." She smiled, but her eyes hardened. That was the day I should have known. Back in the coffin, I remembered all these things. And each memory gave me strength. My fingers clawed at the wood. My nails scraped. My breath grew heavier. Outside, the funeral had ended. I could hear the earth falling on top of the coffin. Shovel after shovel. Thud after thud. They were burying me alive. I panicked. My chest heaved. My heart raced. The soil pressed harder above me. The air grew thin. But as the darkness wrapped tighter around me, I remembered Lily. My sweet Lily. She was the reason I could not give up. She needed me. If Elizabeth had done this to her own mother, what would she do to her niece? That thought lit a fire inside me. With a groan that no one could hear, I pushed my hand against the coffin lid. It didn't open. I tried again, harder this time. The coffin creaked. Suddenly, I heard a scream. A child's scream. It was Lily's voice. "Stop. Grandma is not dead." I saw her move. My heart leapt. She had seen me. She believed. But Elizabeth's cruel voice rose above hers. "Silence, Lily. You are imagining things. Go home before I punish you." "No." Lily cried. "I saw her hand. She's alive. I beat on the coffin lid with all the strength I had left. Boom! 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 The wood groaned, but it didn't break. Listen! Lily shouted. She's knocking. Please help her. The crowd grew restless. Some whispered. Some gasped. But Elizabeth shouted again. It's the wind. It's nothing. Cover it with more soil. And then came the sound, the shovels working faster. More dirt. More weight. More silence. Inside the coffin, tears streamed down my face. Not from weakness but from fury. My own daughter wanted me dead. She was ready to bury me alive. Even in front of everyone. The air grew thin. My vision blurred. My heart slowed. For a moment I thought it was over. But then, I heard another sound. The coffin lid cracked. Just a tiny line of light peeked through. My hand had broken it. A small rush of air filled my lungs. I gasped. The light grew brighter. Someone was digging. Fast. Desperate. And then I heard her voice, Lily. Hold on, Grandma. I'm coming. My heart swelled with hope. But then, another voice cut through the air. Elizabeth again, this time furious. Get away from there, Lily. If you touch that coffin, you will regret it. The shovels stopped. The digging slowed. The air above grew tense. A fight was about to begin. Between the daughter who wanted me gone. And the granddaughter who wanted me saved. And deep inside the coffin I whispered, Fight for me, Lily. Fight for me. That was when I heard the sound of a slap. A sharp, cruel slap. Lily cried out. My blood boiled. My hand slammed against the coffin lid again. Harder than ever. Crack. The wood split wider. The crowd gasped. It moved again, someone shouted. But Elizabeth yelled louder. Enough. She is dead. She is not coming back. And then silence. A silence so heavy, I could feel it pressing on me. Until a single voice broke it. A man's voice. Deep. Strong. Then why, he asked. Is the coffin moving on its own? The air froze. The people gasped. And I smiled in the dark. Because my return had just begun. Then why is the coffin moving on its own? The man asked, his voice echoing through the churchyard like thunder. The crowd froze. Every eye turned to the coffin. I lay inside, still as stone, but my heart pounded louder than the church bells. Elizabeth's voice cracked as she tried to laugh. It's nothing. Just the wood settling. Old wood makes noises. But no one laughed with her. They had seen it. They had heard it. The crack in the coffin lid, the faint knocking, the breath of air that had escaped. The man stepped closer. His name was Pastor William. A tall man with broad shoulders, gray hair, and eyes that could see through lies. He had baptized half the town, married young couples, and buried the dead with dignity. But this burial was different, and he knew it. I have stood at many graves, he said slowly, his voice firm. And never once has the coffin moved like this. Something is wrong here. Elizabeth's face turned red. Are you calling me a liar, Pastor? The crowd murmured. Some nodded in agreement with the pastor. Others glanced nervously at Elizabeth. She was known for her temper, and no one wanted to be on her bad side. Lily, my sweet granddaughter, clutched the pastor's sleeve. Please, she begged, her voice trembling. Please open it. Grandma is alive, I know it. I saw her hand move. The pastor looked at Lily, then at the coffin. He bent down and touched the cracked lid. For a moment he closed his eyes as if listening. Then he nodded. Bring me a crowbar, he said firmly. Gasps rose from the crowd. Some rushed to fetch tools, but Elizabeth stepped in front of the coffin, her arms spread wide. No, you will not open it. She is gone. Leave her in peace. Peace, the pastor repeated. Or silence. His words cut sharper than a knife. I could not see them, but I felt the shift. The crowd was turning. Doubt grew in their minds. Why was Elizabeth so desperate to keep the coffin closed? Inside, my strength flickered like a candle in the wind. I pounded weakly on the lid again. Top, top, top. Each sound louder than a shout to those who listened. The people gasped again. It's her. She's alive, someone cried. No. Elizabeth screamed, her voice wild. It's just air. Nothing more. But the truth was too loud now. The pastor grabbed the crowbar from a young man and jammed it into the crack. With a grunt he pushed. The wood creaked, groaned, and finally split wide open. Light poured into my eyes. Fresh air rushed into my lungs. I gasped, my chest heaving as I pulled in breath after breath. The world above me blurred with faces, voices, and the blue sky I thought I'd never see again. "She's alive," Lily cried, falling to her knees beside me. "I told you. I told you." The crowd erupted. Some screamed in shock. Others shouted in praise. Hands reached to pull me up, but my body was too weak. Elizabeth stood frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. For the first time she had no words. The pastor looked at her sharply. "Your mother has returned from the grave, Elizabeth. Do you care to explain how she was put there alive?" The crowd fell silent, waiting. Elizabeth stammered, her lips trembling. I don't know. The doctor said she was gone. It's not my fault." But her eyes betrayed her. They darted left and right, searching for an escape. I sat up slowly, my body aching, my voice cracked but strong enough. I pointed at Elizabeth. She wanted me dead." Gasps echoed. People turned to look at her. She shook her head wildly. "No. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying." But I saw it, the fear in her eyes. She knew her secrets were unraveling. The pastor's voice boomed. "Take her aside. We will not bury lies with the living." Two men stepped forward, but Elizabeth pushed past them. She ran through the crowd, her black dress flapping behind her. "You'll regret this," she screamed. "All of you." And then she disappeared into the woods beyond the graveyard. The people carried me gently back to my home. My body was weak, but my spirit burned like fire. Lily stayed by my side, holding my hand. Thomas and Sarah wept tears of joy, kissing my forehead again and again. "You came back to us, Mother," Sarah whispered. "God has given you back." I wanted to believe her. But deep down I knew this was not over. Elizabeth was still out there. And she was more dangerous than ever. For days I lay in bed recovering. The pastor visited often, bringing food and prayer. Neighbors stopped by with blankets, bread, and wide eyes that couldn't stop staring. To them I was a miracle. To me I was a survivor. But with every kind face I wondered, who else had known? Who else had helped Elizabeth? Could she have done it alone? Lily sat beside me one evening, her small hand wrapped around mine. "Grandma," she whispered. "I heard her before the funeral. She was talking to someone in the garden. She said, 'When she's gone, it will all be ours.'" My heart sank. Who was she talking to? Lily shook her head. "I don't know. I couldn't see. But it was a man's voice. A man." My mind raced. Could it have been someone from town? Someone I trusted? I thought of Daniel, the lawyer who handled my will. I thought of Mr. Harris, the neighbor who always asked about my land. Or maybe someone closer. Too close. The suspicion gnawed at me. One night, as I sat by the window, I saw movement near the edge of my garden. A shadow. Tall. Watching. My blood ran cold. "Elizabeth," I whispered. But the figure turned and vanished into the night before I could see its face. I called Thomas the next morning. "We need to be careful. She is still here. She is watching us." He frowned. "Mother, she won't dare come back after what she's done." But I knew my daughter. She was not the type to give up. She was the type to strike harder when cornered. And I was right. Because that very night, a stone crashed through my window, landing at my feet. Wrapped around it was a note. In red ink it read, "If you think you escaped, you are wrong. Next time, not even the coffin will save you." I stared at the words, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. Elizabeth was not finished with me. And I realized, neither was I finished with her. The stone lay at my feet, dust clinging to its sharp edges. My hands shook as I picked it up, the red ink on the note burning into my eyes. "If you think you escaped, you are wrong. Next time, not even the coffin will save you." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The window was shattered, the cold night air biting against my skin, but it wasn't the cold that froze me. It was the realization that Elizabeth was still watching, still planning, still close. I clutched the note tightly. "She won't stop," I whispered. "She won't stop until one of us is gone." Lily rushed into the room. her small eyes wide with fear. "Grandma, what happened?" I pulled her close, hiding the note behind my back. "Nothing for you to worry about, child," I said softly, though my heart was pounding like thunder. But Lily saw through me. She always did. Her voice trembled. "It's her, isn't it? Aunt Elizabeth. She's back." I looked at her, my lips pressed tight. "Yes," I admitted. "It's her." The next morning I called Thomas and Sarah. They came quickly, their faces drawn with worry. The shattered glass sparkled on the floor, the note lying on the table like a curse. Thomas clenched his fists. "This is madness. She's threatening you even after everything. We need to tell the police." But Sarah shook her head, tears in her eyes. "And say what? That our sister tried to bury our mother alive? That she throws stones in the night? Do you think they will believe us? They'll call it family drama." Her words stung because they were true. In Willowbrook, the police rarely stepped into family matters. They believed in keeping things private. And Elizabeth was clever enough to twist every word. I leaned forward, my voice calm but strong. "This is not just about me anymore. If she could betray her own mother, she can hurt anyone. Thomas, Sarah, we must be ready. She won't stop." Thomas nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He had always been slow to anger, patient like his father. But patience could not save us this time. That night, sleep escaped me. I sat awake in my chair, staring at the broken window, now covered with a wooden board. The house was silent, but my mind was loud with thoughts. I remembered Elizabeth's face at the coffin, the way her eyes widened when the lid cracked, the terror when I rose. That was not just fear of being caught. It was fear of losing everything she thought was hers. And then I remembered Lily's words. Elizabeth had been speaking to a man in the garden. Who was he? Who was helping her? The question gnawed at me. The next day, Lily and I walked to the market. People stopped and stared as we passed. Some touched my arm, whispering, "God spared you, Maggie." Others stepped back, as if afraid of me. They saw me as someone who had cheated death, and that frightened them. At the bread stall, Mrs. Turner leaned close, her voice low. "Be careful, Maggie. Not everyone is happy to see you back. Some say you should have stayed in the grave." Her words chilled me. Who says such things? She glanced over her shoulder, then whispered, "Ask your neighbor, Mr. Harris. He's been talking too much about your land." My stomach tightened. Mr. Harris, the man who had always asked about my property, my garden, my will. Could he be the man in the garden with Elizabeth? That night, I told Thomas. He frowned, deep in thought. "It could be him. He's always wanted your land. He once told me it was wasted on you. But do you really think Elizabeth would work with him?" I stared out the window into the dark. Elizabeth would work with the devil himself if it gave her what she wanted. The days passed, but the threats did not stop. Each morning, I found something new. A dead crow on my porch. My garden trampled again. Once a knife stabbed into my door with another note tied to it. "This time, no one will dig you out." Lily grew more fearful. She refused to sleep in her own bed, curling beside me each night. Her small hand clutched mine as if she feared I would disappear. I tried to comfort her. "Don't be afraid, child. Evil may strike, but truth stands longer." But inside I was afraid too. One evening, Pastor William came to visit. He sat in my living room, his face solemn. "Maggie," he said quietly, "I believe God returned you for a reason. You are meant to reveal what is hidden. But you must be careful. Elizabeth is not just angry. She is desperate. And desperate people are dangerous." I nodded. "I know. But I won't let her win. Not this time." The pastor looked at me long and hard. "Then you must prepare. You cannot fight her with anger. You must fight her with truth." His words stayed with me long after he left. The next morning, I decided to visit Mr. Harris. I needed answers. When I knocked on his door, he opened it slowly, his eyes narrowing when he saw me. "Well, well," he said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "The dead has returned to the neighborhood." I stared at him. "You've been speaking about my land." "Why?" He chuckled, leaning against the doorframe. "Because it's wasted on you, Maggie. You're too old to work it. Too weak to keep it. A smart woman would sell it before someone takes it from her. My eyes narrowed. Are you working with Elizabeth? His smile faltered for a moment, just a flicker, but enough for me to see. He closed the door halfway. You should leave, Maggie. You don't know what you're talking about. But I did know. His silence told me everything. That night, I told Thomas and Sarah what happened. Thomas was furious. If Harris is helping her, then we need proof. We can't accuse him without it. But proof was hard to find. Elizabeth and Harris were clever. They moved in shadows, whispered in corners, and left only fear in their wake. Still I watched. I listened. And I waited. 1 week later my waiting paid off. Lily came running to me breathless. Grandma! I saw them. Aunt Elizabeth and Mr. Harris. They were meeting near the old barn. She gave him something, papers. My heart raced. Papers. My will. My land deeds. Without a word I grabbed my shawl and hurried to the barn with Lily close behind. The night was dark, the air heavy. We hid behind a tree, peeking at the figures near the barn. There she was, Elizabeth. Her hair wild, her face twisted with anger. And beside her Mr. Harris, clutching papers in his greedy hands. We'll burn it all if we must, Elizabeth hissed. She won't win. She won't take back what should be mine. My chest tightened. Those papers were proof of everything. But before I could move, Lily gasped. The sound was small, but it was enough. Elizabeth's head snapped up. Her eyes met mine in the dark. Mother! She screamed, her voice filled with rage. Harris dropped the papers. Elizabeth charged toward us. Her hands curled into claws, her eyes blazing with hatred. And in that moment I realized, she wasn't just trying to silence me. She wanted to end me with her own hands. The wind outside screamed louder than ever that night, almost as if the heavens themselves were angry at what had been done to me. I sat alone in the empty church, the candlelight flickering across the wooden coffin where my body had once been placed. My hands trembled as I touched the lid, remembering every single word she had whispered into my coffin, every cruel laugh, every lie. The memory burned inside me like fire. I had returned, yes, but I was no longer the same woman they once knew. I was still Grandma, the gentle one, the loving one, the woman who once baked bread for the children in the village. But now I carried with me the strength of the grave. I could hear whispers no one else could hear. I could see shadows moving where others only saw walls. Death had changed me, but it had also armed me. That night, I began to plan my revenge in silence. I knew I could not simply walk into her home and demand answers. She was cunning, dangerous, and she had friends who would protect her at any cost. No, I needed to move like the wind, unseen, unheard, but always felt. So I followed her. From the dark corners, I watched as she walked proudly through the village, her dress sweeping the dust, her head held high like a queen who had conquered it all. She believed she was safe, that the dead could not speak. But I followed her every step, my presence like a shadow at her back. One evening, as she sat with her friends, drinking wine and boasting about how she had taken everything from me, I slipped into the room unnoticed. The windows rattled though the night was calm, the lamps flickered though the oil was still. Her friends shivered, looking around nervously, but she only laughed and said, "Don't be afraid. It's just the wind." But it wasn't the wind. It was me. I leaned close to her ear, my voice as soft as the grave. "I heard you." She froze, her smile fading. The glass in her hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Everyone stared at her, asking what was wrong, but she could not answer. Her lips moved without words, her skin turned pale. Her eyes darted around the room searching for what she could not see. I was standing right there, yet no one else could sense me. From that night, she began to lose her peace. Sleep abandoned her. She woke screaming, saying she heard whispers in the darkness, saying she felt someone breathing beside her bed. She stopped laughing in public, stopped walking proudly, and her eyes became hollow, haunted. I watched it all, not with joy but with justice in my heart. She had taken so much from me, but now it was her turn to feel the weight of fear pressing against her soul. Still, I was not done. Fear was only the beginning. The lesson, my dear children, is this. Never believe that your secrets are buried with the dead. Sometimes the grave listens and sometimes the grave answers back. But just when I thought I had full control, Just when I thought she would break completely under the weight of my return, something happened that I did not expect. Late one night, as I stood at her window watching her shiver and cry into her pillow, a hand touched my shoulder from behind. Cold, strong, and firm. I turned, and what I saw made my heart stop again. The cold hand on my shoulder sent a shock through me. I had thought I was alone in that moment, watching her weep in her room. But when I turned, my breath caught in my throat. It was him. My husband. The man who had stood by me for years. The man I thought had been faithful. The man I believed had been mourning when they placed me in that coffin. He was standing there in the shadows, but his face was not the same as I remembered. His eyes glowed faintly, not with warmth, but with something darker, something that made my skin crawl. "Why are you here?" I whispered, though my voice trembled. He smiled, but it was not a smile of love. It was cold, sharp, the smile of someone who carried secrets. "Because you weren't supposed to come back," he said softly, almost like a hiss. My knees weakened. My mind raced. What did he mean? I wasn't supposed to come back? Could it be he was part of this too? The air grew heavier between us. I wanted to step back to escape, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. My husband leaned closer and whispered, "She wasn't the only one who spoke at your coffin. I was there too. And I said things you didn't hear." My heart thundered in my chest. Betrayal cut deeper than any grave. All this time I had been focused on her, the woman who had spoken wicked words into my coffin, but now I realized I had been blind to the man I trusted most. "Why?" My voice cracked, tears burning in my eyes. "Why would you do this to me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back into the darkness of the night, and before I could reach him, his figure melted away like mist. I stood frozen at her window, my mind a storm of confusion. Who was my real enemy now? Was it the woman who had laughed at my coffin, or the man I once called my own? Or was it both of them working together against me? The next morning, I returned to the village, walking through the narrow paths no one dared to cross at dawn. The people stared at me, whispering, pointing. Some swore I was alive, others swore I was a ghost. Children hid behind their mothers, and even the elders crossed themselves when I passed. I wanted to tell them the truth, to scream that I had been betrayed not once but twice. But no words came. Only silence. My revenge could not be rushed. It had to be sharp, clear, and final. But as I sat alone in the small house I once called home, I felt something strange. A chill ran through me, different from before. I heard voices whispering. Not from outside, not from the living, but from the coffin itself, the same coffin they had placed me in. The whispers grew louder, calling my name. They told me things, secrets buried deeper than soil, secrets about my family, my past, and the ones I loved. They told me that what I had seen was only the beginning. And then, just as I tried to silence the voices, the door of my house creaked open on its own. Slowly, painfully, a shadow stepped in. And when I saw who it was, my blood turned to ice. The door groaned louder as it opened, and the shadow slipped into my house. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart beating so hard it felt like drums in my chest. The candlelight flickered, stretching the figure's shadow across the floor until it almost touched my feet. When the person finally stepped forward, I gasped. It was her. The woman whose voice I had heard at my coffin. The one who had laughed when she thought I was dead. The one whose lies had poisoned the air of my funeral. She stood in my house, her eyes wild, her lips trembling. But she was not the proud, fearless woman I had seen before. No, her face was pale, her hands shook, and her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, you have to listen to me." I wanted to scream at her, to throw her out, to make her suffer for every cruel word I had overheard. But something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't arrogance anymore, it was fear. "What do you want here?" I asked, my voice low, almost growling. She fell to her knees, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she said, her words tumbling over themselves. "I thought you were gone forever. I only spoke those things because I believed you could never hear them. But now," her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands. "Now I know you heard everything, and I can't sleep. I can't eat. You follow me everywhere. You've destroyed my peace." I stared at her, the fire of revenge still burning inside me. This was what she deserved, wasn't it? To feel the torment she had once laughed about? To know what it was like to have her soul shaken to the core? But before I could speak, she lifted her face again, and what she said next sent shivers through me. It wasn't only me, she whispered. I wasn't the only one at your coffin. Someone else was there that night. Someone darker, someone who wanted you gone. I only said foolish things, but he made sure you would never rise again. I froze. My husband's face flashed in my mind. The glowing eyes. The cold smile. His words. You weren't supposed to come back. Who? I demanded, stepping closer, my voice sharp. Tell me who it was. Her lips parted, and she leaned forward as if to whisper the name into my ear. My hands shook with anticipation. I could almost hear it, almost taste the truth on the edge of her breath. But before she could speak, the candle blew out. The room fell into total darkness. And then from somewhere deep in the shadows, a man's voice echoed. Don't believe her. She lies. The woman screamed. I froze. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. It was him. He was inside the house with us. The voice shook the walls. The air turned heavy, and even though the room was pitch black, I could feel him there. My husband. The man I had trusted. The man who had once held my hand when storms frightened me at night. Now standing in the darkness with a voice colder than the grave. The woman beside me clutched my arm, trembling like a child. It's him, she whispered, her teeth chattering. I told you. He's the one. Silence, his voice thundered. The sound was not human anymore. It was deep, sharp like chains dragging on stone. The floorboards creaked as he stepped closer. I could hear each slow step, and with every movement the air grew colder, as if winter itself had crawled into my little house. I swallowed hard, forcing strength into my voice. Why, William? My voice cracked with both rage and sorrow. Why betray me? Why stand at my coffin and spit words like poison? The footsteps stopped. A cruel laugh filled the room, shaking my bones. Because you were too blind to see, Margaret. Too blind to know the truth. Everything you had, everything you were, should have been mine. You think you returned from the coffin to take revenge? No. You returned to finish the war I started. His words sliced into me. A war? Against me? My mind whirled. I wanted answers, but before I could speak again, the woman screamed. I turned sharply. Something was pulling her into the darkness. Invisible hands dragging her by the ankles. She kicked and clawed, shrieking my name. I rushed forward, grabbing her wrists with all my strength, pulling against the shadows that seemed alive. The room erupted with chaos. The furniture rattled, windows cracked, and the coffin where I had once lain began to creak open on its own. From inside came the sound of whispers, louder than ever. Voices calling out both my name and his. The woman cried. He made me do it. He made me speak those things at your coffin. He promised me wealth, he promised me freedom if I turned against you. Her confession cut off with a shriek as the shadows pulled harder, almost yanking her from my grip. My hands burned as I struggled to hold her. Let her go. I shouted into the darkness. If it's me you want, then take me instead. But William's voice only grew colder. No, Margaret. I will take both of you. And when I'm done, no one will ever know you returned from the dead. The woman's fingers slipped from my grasp. And in one horrifying instant, she was gone, swallowed by the dark. The room went still. Silent. Only his breathing remained, slow and heavy, right behind me. I turned, my body shaking. And there he was, standing in the glow of the reopened coffin. His eyes burned red like fire, his smile sharp as a blade. Now, he whispered. It's your turn. The coffin behind him groaned wider, as though it were breathing, as though it had become a door between the living and the dead. William stood in front of it, his shadow stretching across the floor like a monster's wings. His eyes glowed red, and his smile was twisted with something inhuman. I steadied myself, though fear shook through my bones. You were my husband. I whispered, my voice trembling. The man I trusted with my heart, the man I believed would bury me with love. Why did you betray me? He laughed, a sound that rattled the windows. Because love was never enough, Margaret. Love makes fools of us all. I wanted more. Power. Wealth. Freedom. You held me back. And when the time came, I did what I had to do. I buried you and claimed everything you left behind." His words pierced me deeper than the grave itself. But before I could speak, the coffin behind him began to tremble violently. From inside came whispers, voices of the dead rising louder and louder. They called both of our names, dragging our secrets into the open. "Liar," one voice hissed. "Betrayer," another spat. "Thief of blood," a third moaned. The voices filled the room until it felt like 100 souls had gathered. William flinched, his cruel smile faltering for the first time. He looked behind him, then back at me, and his red eyes dimmed with sudden fear. I knew then that the coffin was not just mine. It belonged to something greater, something that held both of us accountable. Summoning strength I did not know I had, I stepped forward, my voice firm. "You may have betrayed me, William. You may have tricked her into mocking me at my coffin. But the grave heard it all. And the grave does not forget." The whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a storm. The windows shattered, wind howled into the room, and the floor shook as though the earth itself was angry. William tried to speak, but the voices drowned him out. "Margaret," they whispered. "Choose." The room fell deadly quiet. So quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Then the coffin spoke again, but this time the voice was not many. It was one deep and thunderous. "Choose, Margaret. Will you return to the coffin and rest forever? Or will you drag him in and end his reign?" My heart pounded. My knees weakened. The power was in my hands now. I could end him, destroy him once and for all, but at what cost? If I pulled him into the coffin, would I be trapped too? William stepped forward, his face twisted in rage. "Don't listen. They lied to you. You belong in the grave, not me." He lunged toward me, his hands outstretched like claws. I stumbled back, my hands pressing against the wooden lid of the coffin. It vibrated under my palms, hot like fire, alive with power. The choice weighed heavy on me, heavier than any stone. And then in one terrifying moment, William grabbed me by the throat, his grip like iron. "If you won't return willingly," he snarled, "then I'll throw you in myself." I gasped for air, clawing at his hand, my vision blurring. The whispers returned, screaming now, urging me to act. With the last of my strength, I raised my hand and pushed against his chest. But it wasn't just a push. It was something greater, something born of the grave. A surge of power burst from me, throwing him back into the coffin. The lid slammed shut. Silence. The room went still, the air heavy. My knees gave way, and I fell to the floor shaking. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then, the coffin began to crack, and something far darker than William's face began to push its way through the wood. The coffin split with a deafening crack, wood splintering like bones breaking in the night. I scrambled backward across the floor, my heart racing so fast I thought it would burst. From inside came a black mist, thick and alive, swirling like smoke yet moving with purpose. It crawled out, filling the room with the stench of decay. And then I saw it. A face, not William's, not human at all, pushed through the mist. Hollow eyes darker than the deepest grave glared at me. Its voice was not like William's thunder, but colder, emptier, like the whisper of death itself. "You thought it was only him, Margaret," the voice said. "But I was always here. He was my servant. His betrayal fed me. And now you will both be mine." I shook my head, tears burning in my eyes. No. I've suffered enough. I've heard enough lies at my coffin. I won't let you take me." The shadow laughed, stretching higher until it towered over me. The walls shook, the ground cracked, and the whispers of the dead rose into a scream. The force of it pressed down on me, suffocating, crushing. But then in the middle of the chaos I remembered something. The voices had given me a choice. The coffin did not open on its own. It reacted to my will, my spirit, my strength. This shadow wanted me weak. But if I stood strong, if I remembered who I was, it could not control me. I rose to my feet, shaky but determined. "You may control him," I shouted. "But you will not control me. My life was taken, my love was broken, but my soul is still mine." The shadow hissed, its mist swirling violently. "Foolish woman. You are nothing without the grave. You returned because of me. You breathe because of me." "No," I said firmly, my voice steady now. I returned because truth cannot be buried. I returned because betrayal cannot stay hidden. I returned because the grave heard every word spoken at my coffin and gave me the strength to answer back. The whispers suddenly shifted. They no longer screamed, they chanted my name over and over. Margaret, Margaret, Margaret. The power surged through me again, brighter and hotter than before. I raised my hands, and the mist recoiled as though burned by fire. The coffin glowed with light, not darkness this time, a light so strong it swallowed the shadow whole. William's voice screamed from inside, begging, pleading. But I did not falter. This was his punishment, his end. Both he and the dark force he served were dragged into the coffin, their voices fading until silence returned. The lid slammed shut one last time. This time it stayed shut. No cracks. No whispers. Only silence. I collapsed to my knees, tears streaming down my face. The battle was over. I had faced betrayal, I had faced darkness, and I had faced death itself. And I had won. As dawn broke through the shattered windows, the golden light touched my skin. For the first time since I returned, I felt peace. My revenge had been served, but more importantly, the truth had been revealed. I walked out of that house, out of that night of terror, knowing one lesson above all. The grave may hold bodies, but it cannot silence truth. Betrayal will always come to light, no matter how deep it is buried. And sometimes the dead return, not to haunt, but to teach the living that lies have consequences. And as I stepped into the morning sun, I whispered to myself, this chapter is over. But deep inside, I knew the grave would always be listening. Now you know, the grave keeps secrets, but the truth always rises. What would you do if you overheard the people you trusted most speaking at your coffin? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget, like this story, share it with others, and hit subscribe so you never miss the next shocking twist.